the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in Brazil, where the Workers' Party has handed over the presidential candidacy to Fernando Haddad. He will replace former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva in the electoral race. The decision was made at the party's meeting in Curitiba. Hundreds of people supporting Lula have gathered outside the prison where he's been held.
That pain, that defeat and disappointment caused by losing our candidate motivates us to accept President Lula's challenge to not leave Brazil without an alternative, to continue fighting. And as he determined and suggested, we introduced Fernando Haddad as the presidential candidate of the Workers' Party.
We will
not accept a Brazil of the 19th or 18th century. We don't want an unequal Brazil. We will work together to build a new country. We are together here to fulfill this task, and we don't have any problems. We have the will to give back to Brazil. We count with each and every one of you. We will go to the streets, and on the 28th, we will celebrate Brazil's democracy. Long live democracy, Lula libre, and long live Brazil.
Haddad is the voice of Lula. We won't need to tell the people this. Lula is still the candidate, but under the name of Fernando Haddad. It's the same program, it's the same project.
Our correspondent Andre Vieira has more from Curitiba.
September 11 is a historic day for Brazil because it is a day to reaffirm once again that Lula da Silva is suffering through a process of political, media, and judicial persecution, so they can remove him from the electoral race here in Brazil. But it's also the day in which Lula da Silva will be replaced by Fernando Haddad in the elections to take place on October 7th. Social movements are intensifying their struggle to reaffirm Lula's innocence, but also in support of Fernando Haddad, that they say will be the legitimate representative of Lula da Silva in these coming elections. They are also calling for return to democracy after the coup in 2016.
That was Andre Vieira from Brazil. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has condemned the siege against Venezuela at the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. He said the measures taken by the United States and the European Union have promoted a financial blockade. Arreaza also met with the new UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, to discuss Venezuelan migration throughout the region. He also asked the Human Rights Council to be fair in its rulings.
We now have proof. How many times has President Nicolas Maduro and previously President Hugo Chavez, how many times did they denounce the interventionist, brutal, criminal action of the imperial factors against Venezuela?
And late Tuesday, President Nicolas Maduro spoke at the closing of the Third Youth Congress of the United Socialist Party. He said that the demand for compensation for the more than 5 million Colombian citizens residing in Venezuela would be taken to international bodies by Minister Jorge Rodriguez.
I have authorized the legal teams of the Republic to prepare a lawsuit against the Colombian government to demand compensation for the 5.6 million Colombians we have living in Venezuela, to pay us an indemnity in US dollars. We will take this to the international bodies, and I have to put the Minister Jorge Rodriguez in charge of that.
President Maduro also recalled Salvador Allende on the anniversary of the Chilean coup.
We are commemorating 45 years since the fascist coup staged by U.S. imperialists against the constitutional elected president of Chile, the great leader Salvador Allende. 45 years since the coup that subjected Chile to a fierce dictatorship with more than 5,000 disappeared, many tortured, 100,000 people in concentration camps, and over 1 million forced into exile.
September 11th marks the 45th anniversary of the coup in Chile in 1973 that left President Salvador Allende dead and ushered in the 17-year dictatorship of General Augusto Pinochet. Nearly 3,200 people died or disappeared in political violence during the dictatorship until 1990. The vast majority of deaths were by Pinochet's forces and by his infamous secret police in clandestine detention centers. Another 28,000 were tortured.
Every September 11, Chile awakens more silent than usual, with the feeling that no matter how much time has passed, things are still not right.
Today is the anniversary of the military coup which put an end to democracy. I'm too young to give an informed opinion if the actions of that day were justified, but I believe that bombing the presidential palace is not the way to defend our nation.
There were so many detained, so many disappeared and tortured. Their family members joined the crowd of mourners.
I don't have a name for it. It was painful. I would be waiting to buy bread, and members of the military would attack us. There are so many more things not worth remembering.
What does today signify for you?
Pain. My dad was taken to the National Stadium, where so many people were killed.
Was your dad one of the many disappeared?
Yes, I still don't know where he is.
This is why memory matters, reconstructing the events of that day over and over again. Projects like Timeless Pictures represent this idea by merging historical pictures with current image. Many initiatives are defying indifference and impunity traits, words that are becoming more frequent following the recent freeing of members of the Pinochet administration accused of murder and torture. Mireia and her brother's story are part of one of the most heartbreaking projects, a documentary that reconstructs his final moments as a prisoner in Dawson Island.
Our conviction remains strong despite the passage of time. Time will not lead to forgetting. It will only lead to the strengthening of our will for truth and justice for the victims.
Another art project being held this year is the digital recreation of the faces of those who were lost so their families may see how they could have aged. This is what they would look like today, they say, in between laughter and tears.
We are calling out impunity. There are those who walk away free of our suffering, free of losing loved ones. That can no longer be. My brother will never come back.
Projects like this not only reveal the link families have with their lost loved ones, but the link a nation has with its past.
Social and political organizations have marked the anniversary of the military coup in Chile. They honored former President Allende, who died in that presidential palace on September 11. They are also demanding justice for the victims and disappeared of Pinochet's brutal regime. Dozens of demonstrators have also commemorated the anniversary in England, outside the Chilean embassy in London. Many participants were political prisoners under the dictatorship. They protested with messages embroidered into patchworks, which they prepared themselves. They also displayed the list of people who disappeared during the dark days of the dictatorship.
I'm a former political prisoner of Pinochet's dictatorship. We are here with various Chileans that also arrived during my times who now have kids. And we are demanding the Chilean government to deliver justice for the victims who were assassinated and many just disappeared. I want to send a message to President Sebastián Piñera. I want to ask him to respect the international legislation. Why am I saying this? Well, because since Piñera became president, his government has freed various assassins that have committed grave crimes against humanity. We cannot allow that.
The reason we're here today outside the Chilean embassy, 45 years after the coup, is because even though we have democracy today in Chile, we've not had justice. We still have 3,000 people disappeared, whose loved ones do not know where they are, how they were killed, have no gravestone to go and visit, to put flowers down. And for us it's very important that their memories aren't forgotten, that they're not lost.
Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
The ruling world order has always subjugated the masses. But who are the actors behind every move? What are their real interests? We analyze every move on Critical Move. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Residents of the Chilean communities of Puchuncavi and Quintero are protesting against the environmental crisis in the area. The Health Commission has been meeting to find a solution. Our correspondent in Santiago, Thiare Valenzuela, has the details.
The Health Commission has met to discuss the massive poisoning that occurred in the coastal area in the communities of Puchuncavi and Quintero. A few weeks ago, at least 30 students were poisoned and taken to the hospital with nausea and paralysis. A few days ago, the number of victims rose to 300. The two affected communities have shown the highest levels of cancer in the country and also several cases of miscarriages. An industrial plant has been located in the area since the 1970s. Residents in the affected area have protested and asked the government to guarantee for the safety of their life.
That was Thiare Valenzuela. Now, trade unions and social movements in Argentina have set up soup kitchens throughout the country. Better known as holladas, they are a gesture of protest against the cuts and job losses imposed by the government of Mauricio Macri. Sabrina Roth reports from Buenos Aires.
A number of soup kitchens were organized today by the Workers' Confederation of Argentina, the National Federation of Labor Cooperatives, and the Milagros Salas Front for Labor and Dignity. Since the 9th of July, numerous soup kitchens have been set up to protest against the restructuring that has affected 100,000 jobs. These are jobs that existed under the previous government and were cut without any compensation. That affects many sectors, and it is made more serious as a result of the austerity measures imposed by Mauricio Macri and the IMF. That is why more than 15,000 people have come out to protest across the country today.
Sabrina Roth from Argentina. Workers in Costa Rica are continuing their week of protests. Thousands of workers from the public services have marched in the capital, San Jose, to support the open-ended strike that began on Monday. They are angry about the government's fiscal reform plan. Workers say it will affect the most vulnerable. They also believe the new measures won't help the country's economy.
They shouldn't raise the basic needs products by 1%, because there are people in this country in extreme poverty, and the only thing it will do is to make the citizen who does not have to eat suffer more.
This is a movement that continues. It is a movement of an indefinite nature, and tomorrow we will be in the streets again.
A state of emergency has been declared in 2 of Honduras' southern province due to a drought. Families are going hungry because of the severe conditions and its effects on their farms. Those living in hard-hit areas have not been able to feed themselves, so families require emergency food. Roughly 82% of corn and bean crops have been lost. More than half of the municipalities have been badly affected. It's been almost a year since the earthquake that shattered Mexico City. Our correspondent Pablo Perez tells us how they are dealing with the effects.
When the earthquake alarm goes off, the response is immediate. The students at this college instantly abandon their classrooms and follow instructions to evacuate. Experts from a research institute say such training saved lives during the September 19th earthquake.
That very same day, there was a drill hours earlier, which meant people were very aware of what they should do if there was an earthquake.
At this forum, 19S, Mexico, 365 days after the earthquake, experts from different fields talk about the effects of the quake. For this psychologist, the constant drills do save lives, but they ignore the emotional harm that may be caused.
We begin to think of it as something natural. Oh yeah, the alarm went off. And we evacuate the area with our phone in our hands, but we no longer consider it serious. It becomes an ordinary, everyday part of life. And it should not be like that.
Another big impact is the visible damage caused by the earthquakes across the city. Damage it will take a lot of time to repair, and often only by the efforts of the victims themselves.
From what I've seen, it'll take around 10 years, while the neighbors come to an agreement, then the expert opinion is sought, and the project is developed. It's very hard.
38 buildings in the city collapsed, but many of those still standing remain a possible danger.
We've listed some of the buildings as uninhabitable, but there are still people living in them because they say they don't have anywhere to go. It's a very difficult problem.
According to official figures, 1 year after the earthquake, there are still 349 buildings left to demolish, of the 411 that were damaged beyond repair. 983 buildings, like this one, are classified as high risk after the September quakes. The victims, like these residents of the Tlalpan housing estate, say it seems they are still not a priority for the government.
More than 1 million people have been evacuated from the east coast of the United States as Hurricane Florence approaches. The Category 4 storm is said to be the most powerful to menace the region in nearly 30 years. Authorities have warned of torrential rains and flooding across several states. And many gas stations ran out of supplies, forcing some residents to stay put. The storm is being predicted to reach Category 4, but despite this, some locals are insisting on waiting in their homes. Grocery stores are running low on water and food. Florence could make landfall in Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina on Thursday morning. Dominica, Martinique, and Guadeloupe are all under a hurricane watch. Isaac is a tropical storm, but calling it a watch means hurricane conditions could be felt in under 48 hours. Just under a year ago, Dominica was severely damaged after the passage of Hurricane Maria. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerritt called on citizens to take all advisories seriously and to keep monitoring the developments with this storm.
We all have vividly in our memories what happened to us in respect to Hurricane Maria and the speed at which it moved from a Category 3 to a Category 5, which was the quickest in history, 36 minutes. And we all suffered at the hands of Hurricane Maria. So as far as the National Emergency Planning Organization is concerned, we are taking no chances. And we're leaving no stone unturned in respect to the preparation of the state, the country, and its citizens.
We'll take one last short break, but stay with us.
Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is in China, where she's meeting with top officials to boost new collaborative projects between the two countries. She says she's optimistic about the benefits of the cooperation.
This meeting was aimed at expanding cooperation, reinforcing projects, and planning new ones, according to the instructions President Maduro gave us. So this is a way for the Venezuelan people to reach welfare. Cooperation with China will benefit both peoples.
Russia and China have pledged to strengthen bilateral ties and promote world peace. China's President Xi Jinping held talks with Russia's leader Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. Russia's deputy minister stressed the importance of the commitment made by both leaders at the 4th Annual Eastern Economic Forum.
Both China and Russia need Vladivostok to function as a platform to communicate, make decisions, and sign agreements. And the exchanges between the leaders of the two nations during the forum are especially meaningful. So I think the forum is very important as for both the economic and political aspects.
Now to Egypt, where an Arab League meeting in Cairo has discussed the U.S. decision to cut funding to the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Gheit said the goal of the U.S. was to question the legitimacy of the agency. However, he said that the decision will not alter the energy and determination with which UNRWA serves Palestinian refugees. On August 31st, the U.S. State Department announced it will be withdrawing all fundings.
The state of Palestine will find itself compelled to make difficult decisions in the face of this international negligence in seriously dealing with the affairs of the Palestinian people. We hope that these latest crazy steps by the U.S. administration will provoke the conscience of the world to act before it is too late.
The Russian ambassador to the United Nations, Vasily Nebensia, has called to have undeniable proof of provocations being prepared to discredit the Syrian government. He was speaking at the Security Council.
We ask to be heard one more time. The use of chemical weapons by Damascus has not military grounds and is harmful for the military and political point of view, and it would be an invitation to the Western trio to attack Syria, which it is threatening to the under pretext of the use of chemical weapons. However, provocations by the opponents of Damascus who count onto the military support for foreign patrons are quite possible. We have undeniable proof that such provocations are being prepared.
Catalonia's pro-independence movement has rallied in Barcelona. Around 1 million people have demonstrated for the region's National Day. They also called for the release of imprisoned Catalan leaders who they called political prisoners.
For many years, we have been asking to express ourselves democratically to decide our future. We are in an EU country that does not let us to vote to decide our future. We are here because our politicians and our government, following our instruction, set up ballot boxes and the Spain state removed them by force. And for doing this, those people are in prison.
And our final story, an upcoming documentary that sheds light on the story of Scottish workers who boycotted the coup in Chile. The documentary Nae Pasarán, meaning They Shall Not Pass, tells the story of how Bob Fulton and his colleagues refused to repair the Chilean Air Force jet engines arriving at their factory in Scotland in 1974, the same ones that were used to bomb La Moneda Palace. Despite risking their jobs, they led an act of international solidarity against the dictatorship of Pinochet.
They're pensioners. Bob's 95, Robert is 80. They're now commanders of the Republic of Chile. They've received the highest honor given to foreigners by the government of Chile for their efforts to preserve human rights. And one of the things I'm really proud of, we were able to find a lot of the basically Chilean Air Force officers would refuse to take part in the coup to tell their story.
And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. FtS and many other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all the updated information plus videos on all the stories that we presented today. Be also sure to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
We are present at every event where our nations are staring.